Welcome to the Bullpen Show, powered by Architech Sports. I'm your host, Austin Alexander. Very fortunate to have you guys today here on our podcast. Want to cover some ground real quick before we bring in our guest. We're right now in the middle of, if you've been paying attention to our website, we've been spitting out all of our team rankings. That's something we spend quite a bit of time on for your pleasure or for you to argue over who should be one, who should not. We put those out. We've already gotten Skiza 1A, 2A, and 3A posted. The rest of this week, you can look forward to 4A, 5A, and our power rankings. Make sure you pay close attention to thediamondprospects.com as we try to prognosticate what we're going to see on the field coming up this spring. At this point, I want to bring in our very special guest, Brett Harker. Brett Harker, let me give you his resume real quick. It's pretty impressive. From being a quality baseball player to a wonderful baseball coach as well. 29 saves at the College of Charleston, 14 wins to go with that, and for his efforts, recently inducted into the Hall of Fame for the Cougars. He was a fifth-round selection by the Phillies, played 7 years of pro ball, up to AAA with the Marlins, and then following his college career as a player, pro player, and then into the college ranks, was a head coach at Furman Hillcrest High School, won a high school at his alma mater, won a state championship, and then on to Limestone. And that's where we're going to start out right now. Coach, first of all, I want to bring you in. How are you doing today, sir?
Man, I'm doing great. And way to nail that intro. First shot, man. I am so proud of you. Look at you, man. That's my old coach right there, getting it done on the podcast.
Well, as you can see, folks, his nose is growing as we go. Coach, I want to go ahead and start out in a place that we kind of talked about in our pre-show. Longtime head coach at Furman, and then of course, most recently at Limestone. If people have followed baseball, college baseball here locally, they know you had a lot of success at both of those schools. Furman pulls the baseball program during the COVID season, and then last season, Limestone as the university shuts down. If you could kind of take us back to those times, take us through your thoughts, your feelings, and some emotions that came with both, starting with Furman and of course, most recently at Limestone.
Yeah, man. Wow. That's a lot of room to cover there. But, obviously at 31 years old, I get named Furman University's head coach in my hometown. I'm born and raised in Greenville. It's just a dream come true, literally a God thing. Like, there's no reason I should get that job other than God literally said, all right, here, take this and run with it. We did some great things, messed up a whole lot of things. It's funny. That's the stuff that people want to talk about, the things you did great. And you always remember the one kid you let down or the one wrong move you made. But overall, I thought we did some really special things and, did set some records and some great things. And then, what I thought was going to be a forever job, because as fun as, the bigger schools looked, I've always been a person that's very big into work-life balance, and Furman was a place where I could still be a regular dad and had enough flexibility to still be around my kids. And in Greenville, it just means so much to me and my family that was my forever job as long as they would keep me. And then, COVID rolls around and the whole world's upended. And you look back now and with perspective, we know how the outcome was, but in the middle of it, I mean, people didn't know how far this thing was going to go, and get called in the middle of COVID shutdown where you can't even go to campus. And I thought, this is not a good sign. End up being told a 129-year-old program is getting shut down. And honestly, I thought when they first said it, they just meant for the season. I had no idea that meant permanently. It's almost becoming a blur now. The emotions of how it was for my family, for our players. It's as tough as anything can be. It's well documented how much I've talked about this, but it's as if you're losing family members, because now all of a sudden your 35 players are getting shipped off to other places, losing what you love to do. I had no idea if I would coach again. It feels like everything you built and the pain that you feel for alumni and you're right in the middle of it, and you feel like there's something you could do, because as a head coach, you fix things, and there was nothing to fix. And it was tough. And through it all, we just had to lean in and know that God had a plan. It doesn't mean that God caused this, but God was going to see us through this. And we just needed to be great in the short term, which the short term was trying to get as many of our players placed and trying to make sure my assistant coaches were good as they were trying to get players placed. And, man, it was really, really tricky. We're also in a hiring freeze across the country because it was middle of COVID. So there was no other jobs for me to get. Fortunately, I was still under contract with Furman, so my finances were taken care of for a little bit of time. And I actually got a call from from Dale Nelson at Hillcrest saying, "Would you have any interest in coaching us?" And he said it so, almost apologetically. And I said, "Man, let me talk to my wife. I always talk to her about before we make big decisions, and we'll pray about it." And before you know it, I'm a high school coach, coaching at my alma mater, which was wild. I don't know if you want to go more into Furman or if you want me to just keep rolling through this story, because obviously there's a lot of depth to all of this.
Well, I do want to, let's pause right there for just a second. For those who follow the situation, would love to see baseball back at Furman. You're probably more in the know than most folks. Do you think they'll ever bring baseball back to the Paladins?
I do. I really do. I think that, first of all, Furman is such an incredible place. It's a special university. It means a great deal to the city of Greenville. And let's call a spade a spade. Baseball is very big in South Carolina, in Greenville. You see what the Greenville Drive means to that community. There's a ton of history to that. And my hope and prayer is that that was a tough chapter for Furman baseball, but not the end of the book. And I really think it will come back. My prayer is it's sooner than later for the alumni, for all those involved. It's a beautiful facility on a beautiful campus with a rich history. You're not talking about a startup 10-year-old program. It's a 130-year-old program with some incredible history to it, and the infrastructure is all there. They need to get it rolling again, and I pray that it happens sooner than later.
Couldn't agree more. Well, obviously that little hiatus between two college jobs, you win the state championship, team up with Coach Nelson and knock that out at your alma mater. I'm sure that had to be pretty sweet, but obviously you want to get back in the college game. And I remember very well that search that you were going through, just trying to find the right fit. And I end up being at Limestone now. These are my words, not yours. I remember that you inherited quite a mess. It was where that baseball program quite honestly was, but you took it. And I remember you going through the process of taking that. Take us through the decision to ending up at Limestone, and then talk through, basically how that thing went down as well.
Yeah. It's pretty wild. I remember at the gym getting in the lift, and I get a text from the AD at Limestone, and that was nowhere on my radar or anything like that. I actually only knew about the situation because the golf coach that was there at the time said, "Would you have any interest in this?" I'm the head golf coach, and I went to high school with him. Man, I always hear people out. Like, who am I to say what I'm interested or not if I've never been to a place or never heard people out? I said I would. And, I was interviewing or in the talks with assistant coaches at bigger jobs at that point. But a lot of that had me moving from Greenville, which is a big deal. I don't take that serious. Greenville's my roots. It's where our church is. It's where our friends are. It's where our family is. My mom's here. It's not just to pick up and move. I'm not 27 anymore. And so if I could stay in the area, that was a huge plus. It was nice. It was nice to be wanted when I was on the interview at Limestone. They actually said during the interview, "We're actually not interviewing you, you're interviewing us. We want you to be our head coach." So we hope that we pass the test during this interview. And, obviously after what had just happened at Furman, where you felt like you weren't wanted, and that's just the raw emotion of what it felt like. The place is special, and I know that they cared about me and our kids as well. But that was refreshing at Limestone to feel that. And that's how I ended up taking the job now. It was, 50 minutes to an hour from my home, which that's a big deal, man. Like when you do that daily, but baseball is what I do. It's not who I am. And if I could keep my family's life just a little more normal, if that added 2 hours of me driving, then I was going to dedicate that time to making phone calls, doing podcasts, trying to knock out the Bible in a year on the Bible app. I was going to use that time, if that's the sacrifice, if that's what it meant, to keep my kids in their schools, to attend Seacoast Church, to do all the things to try and keep my family as grounded as possible. I've got some great mentors, and, Coach Foxall has told me his moves throughout the years have been tough on his family. He's always advised me, if possible, I would stay as much as you can. Now, sometimes you just have to move. Jobs make it, but if possible, stay. And so I committed to that 2-hour drive that I did for 4 years, and my F-150 had many more miles on it when I was done with that university. That's for sure.
Coach, I want you to take us back. I remember you telling me this story years ago when you were trying to make the decision whether Limestone was going to be your move or not. Kind of a God thing that happened with you and your wife, and the amount that they were going to pay you and whether that was going to work. It was just a really interesting story that basically helped you go from, is this the right step for me, to this is definitely the right step for me.
So, if me and my wife wrote a book, I'll be honest with you, it might be labeled like a fiction book, but I promise you, these God moments, they really happen. and things along the way. Like I probably wouldn't believe it if it didn't happen to myself. But Limestone had offered me the job, and I was letting Lee Long, who's my agent, I was letting him negotiate with it, because whenever it gets the money, you want it to be done through an agent so it doesn't get weird between the AD and the coach. And it's Division II, man. Like nobody's going to get rich from coaching Division II, but you need to be able to pay your bills and provide for your family. And so there was some negotiation, which I had almost none to do with. It was only between the AD and Lee. And Lee comes back, and he's, obviously over the phone, he says, "So Hark, this is kind of their final offer, that they're going to offer you to be the coach there." And I said, "Well, Lee," he goes, "they need to know pretty immediately." And I said, "Well, Lee, my wife's actually at Costco right now. We don't make any decisions without talking with each other." So I said, "Let me hang up. Let me call her." So I call her and I say, "Hey, babe, this is the final offer from Limestone. This is what we're thinking. What's your gut tell you? What do you feel about this?" And she starts crying. Now, keep in mind, this was no amount that should make you start crying, right? This is not a happy, "Oh my gosh, we're set" amount. So that kind of took me back, and I said, "What are we crying about?" And she said, "Well, walk over." I was in our kitchen. She said, "Walk over to my office." So I did. She said, "Pull open the drawer," and I did. She said, "See that little Post-it note?" It was actually like a index card. She said, "Unfold that." And I unfolded it. And she said, "I was driving out." It's hard not to get emotional when you talk about your God moments, but she said, "I was driving down the highway the other day when you just had so many options on the table. What are we going to do? Are we moving? Are we this?" And the Lord told me that we're ending up at Limestone. And just so you know, this is me. This is the exact number he's going to be offered. And on the card, it said, "We'll be at Limestone," with the date she was told this, with to the penny the exact dollar amount that Limestone. I had no idea that this had happened, and I had no part of the negotiations. And when all that happens, what are you going to say? "Well, I don't know, Lord. There's still some big offers on the table." Or you call them back up and you say, "You found your next head coach."
All these years later, I still love that story. I appreciate you telling. You tell it so well. Well, so now you're at Limestone. Like I said, you inherited a situation that was less than enviable. The first year was rough. I remember talking to you several times on the phone. I couldn't believe the outlook that you had on a season that certainly was going south quickly. And I remember you saying something to the effect, "My mission here is more than just how many times we step on home plate, whether we do it more times each night than the opponent. It was bigger than that." Take us through the rough times of that first year. And then, of course, you get some players in there that help you turn it around. You start to win some games, and then you have the rug pulled out from underneath you again. If you could kind of take us through that roller coaster of emotions.
So first and foremost, your memory on some stuff I tell you, it's impressive, man. I got to be careful what I say to you. You'll remember that forever. But it's funny. We went 4-41, 4-41. Statistically, the worst team in all of baseball, college baseball. I would not trade that season or those kids for anything on planet Earth. I wouldn't. You know, I hesitate to even say I took over a mess or. And those were fantastic kids. They were awesome. And they worked their tail off. Now, were our horses in the stable as big and fast as other people's horses in the stable? No. But by God, they were the right people. Like, I loved them. And we worked our tail off. And I am so proud to say that in a 4-41 season, it was our last road trip. We went to the furthest place you could go in Virginia. And at that point, I think we got swept the last weekend. So let's say we're 4-30 or 3 or 4-37, something like that. And those last 3 games, I looked at my assistants and I said, "Gentlemen, I don't know how we did it, but this is the first time I've seen these guys checked out." It was the first weekend all year. It was the last one. We got 3 or 4 wins on the season, and they were just having fun instead of playing to win. And we kept them invested, man. We fought our tails off. It taught me that every 90 feet was so valuable and so crucial. You had to fight for everyone. Like, we were just overmatched, and we had to fight any way possible. First and third early breaks with 2 outs. That's literally how we scored 50% of our runs that year. We had to make up stuff to score runs. And I sat down my assistants when it was all said and done. I said, "Just remember this moment, because it will not always be this hard to score runs. But if we can remember how much we valued every 90 feet here and fight that hard for every 90 feet, when we have a much more talented team, we have a chance to be special if we never lose this perspective," right? Because when you're fighting and clawing for literally every run, every inning, every game, because a win is like transforms the week for your team. If you can fight that hard, that's what the special teams do when they have a ton of talent as well. And I think that projected is what propelled the next couple of years as we got better and better. It's something I never want to lose, and that's why I would never trade that season for anything.
Well, now, obviously, towards the end of your second season there, that's when the school decided to close its doors. Kind of take us through, I guess, that roller coaster of emotions as well, knowing that for the second time, things came to an abrupt end through no fault of your own.
Yeah, so it was my fourth season. So I'd been there 4 years
Excuse me.
when
That's
they
right.
decided, yeah, it's okay, 4 years. And so similar to Furman, I was at Furman for 4 years as the head coach. I'd been there longer as an assistant as well. But man, it was just very bizarre. It was business as usual. There was no budget cuts. There was no let's go on a furlough. There was no let's cut scholarships. Like everybody, that they would, let's do essential spending for these couple months. That's what every school does. And we're having a great season, man. That's, we had never been in the playoffs as a South Atlantic Conference contender. We had only been in that conference for 4 or 5 years. That's a tough baseball conference. It's very, very strong. And, we had ourselves as a third, or we were right between third and fourth place finish. And everyone ahead of us was, a top 10 team. And we had ourselves right in the mix. And we get an email that all faculty and staff need to go in for a meeting. Here was what got me. It was during practice hours. And a place like Limestone that's so heavy in college athletics, they don't mess with practice hours a whole lot, especially with coaches, because they know we got large rosters and that's when we work. And I called my wife and I said, something's wrong. She said, what do you mean? I said, I hope that I'm wrong, but I think it's happening again. And she said, you're being serious? I said, I think it's happening again. And she said, well, if it is, there's no one that'll be more prepared. We'll get through it together. And walk into that meeting and, Limestone people, it's a smaller school, so people don't realize it. When you don't know what you don't know about places. That's a 179-year-old school, 179 years old. It's one of the oldest schools in the state in the Southeast. And to hear that the doors are closing and, all of a sudden I'm getting the same text messages that I got 5 years ago. I'm getting the same voicemails. I'm having the same conversations. And then once again, this is the irony of, and this is where you just got to control what you could control, because I had nothing to do with this. A matter of fact, both times I didn't even know what was coming, right? But at the same time, you are the face of something, so you are answering all the questions. So, board members and people making these decisions aren't being interviewed by the news, aren't being interviewed by, you are the one doing it all. And you have to do it in a way that represents your kids and do what's best for the situation, when really you're going through a bunch of anger and you're going through a bunch of emotions yourself. But at the end of the day, it's a crisis and you're leading through it. And whatever you portray, your kids are going to follow. And we still had a month left of baseball. And I just refused to be a victim. I told them, we're not going to play the victim here. Everyone on earth is going to feel sorry for you. Everyone on earth is going to tell you this is not fair. And all those things are probably true. But if you continue you can be a victim in anything, right? But we're not. We're going to tackle the rest of the season, be the best that we can be, and you're going to put yourself in a good position to go to another place. I'm going to be okay. You're going to be okay. What other coach in the country could this happen to and say, hey, I've been through this. We can get through this. Trust me. I've done it already. And we ended up finishing really strong. Was it incredibly emotional? I don't know how it could have been more emotional. You're playing on the baseball field, and every time you play, if it's the ninth inning, you got a 1-run lead. If you give up that lead, that's the last time that university ever plays a baseball game. How wild is that? And you know it, right? So we make it to the championship against Catawba, which was just an incredible run. And I remember that last out's made, and it's just overwhelming. It's overwhelming that every year you say it's not going to be the same team next year. Yeah, but the core is there, right? So like you lose 8 seniors, but you got your kids back. Not only are you gonna, this team will never be together again, even remotely, but like there's nothing to come back to if you think about that. So that's what the kids have told me is the hardest thing. Like, coach, the hardest thing is like there's no ball game to go to at Limestone this year to like go represent you guys, like our alumni. There's nothing to come back to where we can plan a trip together, go play golf in the morning, go to the game at night. They're spread all over the country. And, that's why I've tried to go to, there's only about a week long, this D2 season, but I've tried to go to some of these games and be there for our guys and our families just to try and give them a little bit of familiarity and comfort, because at the end of the day, man, it happened. It happened. And we're going to either be a victim or we're going to rise through it. And, if you're a Christ follower, I was telling a dad the other day, he said, just your outlook on this whole situation, man, it's pretty wild to me. And I said, well, it's tough to play the victim when you're the son of the king. You can't sit there and say, I'm blessed, and then the next sentence live a victim mindset. You just can't do it. And so I refuse to do it. And God will use this, right? So like if Furman had never happened, and man, do I wish, my flesh wishes it never happened. But if it would have never happened, I would have missed coaching out on those incredible kids at Limestone, right? If Limestone hadn't happened, I wouldn't get to do, there's so many things that have come out of it. Does that mean that it's what I wanted? It's not, man. But so many things came out of it. And you can find so much perspective in it. If you hang with me for a second, I actually had like a sermon came up in my head the other day, and it paralleled. So we couldn't get the ice out from in front of my house, right? All the snow and ice had come, and I put some chemicals out to try and burn the ice off. Well, I go inside and I promised my dog. My dog loves going on truck rides. I said, "Hey, you want to go in the truck?" And he's losing his mind, right? "Oh yeah, Dad promised me I'm going to go in the truck." And so I put on his collar and his leash, and he goes to our garage door, because that's the door we go out. Like that's the direct way to the truck. And I'm like, "No, buddy, I don't want to take him that way. There's chemicals on the ground out the front." He can't comprehend that. He doesn't understand that, right? So I'm trying to drag him to the back door, and he's putting his haunches down. "No, Dad, you promised me. You promised me this," right? So I get him to the back door, and I'm going to walk him around the house, right? And he's literally looking at me like, "Oh, Dad's so dumb. He forgot this is the way we should go. This is what he promised me," right? And I'm walking around. He's literally looking at me and walking on the side of the house like, "Dad, this is not what we talked about doing. This is not it," right? And I walk him around, and he gets to the truck and he looks at me like, "Dad, you didn't lie to me, man." Like we got in the truck and his tail's wagging. And I sat there and said, "Man, isn't that such a resemblance to what we do with God? Like I know what God has promised me, right?" And it's like the direct path is open up the garage door, man, go that way. That's what we do. And God's in there saying, "You don't even know, man, I'm saving you for some things that you can't even comprehend. There's things out there that even if I tried to explain to you, your brain can't comprehend. And so we're going to go this route. But in the end, it's good. And you're going to experience things this way." And it was so convicting to just learn this through my dog, right? My little dog who I love. But it's so similar to things that we go through in life. And I was like, "Hey, dummy, this is you and your baseball career."
Love it. That's such a great share and such a good word there. Man, I really appreciate you giving that nugget to us. You always have such a wonderful silver lining to everything, and always are able to put a stamp on it, unlike most folks that I know. Appreciate that, Hart. Well, one of the questions that I get a lot now is, well, what is Brett Harker up to these days? Now, right after everything went down at Limestone, you worked for 6 months with Anchor Bat Company, and I would like for you to tell folks kind of what you're up to these days.
Yeah, Anchor Bat's incredible, man. Local bat company. Love them. Spent 6 months with them. Helped build out their new space in Greenville. It was incredible. I'm just a coach, and I missed coaching. And so I actually got an opportunity I hopped on with Elite National. A couple of my guys I worked with at Permanent Limestone are involved in that and own that company. And so I'm the director of the Southeast in Florida of a travel ball company that's it's only upperclassmen trying to get into college ball. It's all college coaches. The whole organization is. So you're either a previous or current college coach that coach it or direct it or own it. So I actually get to do a lot of mentoring. I get to mentor these kids. We do a lot of Zoom calls. I'll coach them in the summer. And it's been a very rewarding thing. I'll tell you, it's a chapter. And what I've learned in life is you have to break life down into chapters, right? And when a chapter is tough, I told our kids this all the time. When a chapter is tough, remember it's a chapter. It's not your story. It's a chapter. So eventually you're going to turn that page and it'll be a new chapter, right? And then when things are good, don't look ahead, man. Don't look ahead. Enjoy every word of that chapter, right? This is a chapter of my life. How long am I going to do it? I have no idea. I've learned real quick that I have no idea. I just want to be great where my feet are. And I know that's such a coach thing to say, but I always tell everybody, what's the alternative? If you can't live with the alternative of being great where your feet are, then you really have no choice. Just be great where your feet are. So right now, this job has allowed me to spend a lot more time with my kids. I get to coach Hudson. A lot of times I can be an assistant coach because they hear that's Brett Harker's his dad. Let him be an assistant. And I show up 2 games a year. And I'm like, I tried to tell you it was going to be hard for me to be there. Well, I get to be his head coach. He's in coach's pitch. So I'm actually on the field trying to not strike people out. So we get to do that. I'm at all my daughter's volleyball games on the weekend. That's just something that I miss. And so that time, I got to do this really cool video with my church at Seacoast where they kind of went through my story, and we didn't even plan on it being the last scene of the film. It actually happened off camera, and then they were having to be recording it, so they threw it in. But the ending thing of this video that they did with my story basically said, God said, slow down a little bit. Watch some of your own son's games for a little bit. Watch some of your own daughter's games for a little bit. And so that's the chapter that we're in right now. And I'm trying to just slow down and enjoy every word of this chapter, right? Because I'm a coach, man. I'm used to building and all right, so how are we going to get to Cary next year? How are we going to get to Omaha next year? What's next year's recruiting class? And right now, God's got me in a state where it's like, hey, man, do your job. And you got a really, really nice work-life balance. And my truck, instead of driving 2 hours to and from being a head coach, I drive to the same neighborhood, taking my kids to school, baseball, and volleyball practice about 6 times a day. We joke that my F-150 is turned into a school bus. But something tells me that my kids one day will remember that just as much as they remember lining up on the foul line and doing the national anthem with me, right? The special is in the mundane things. That's the special. Like we all think it's in the trip that we planned to Disney. Man, it's not. It's in being present. And right now, being present, when you're a head coach, you still need to be present. You just have to be you and your wife have to be a lot more intentional about it. Right now, I'm getting to do that on a daily basis, and I'm very thankful and trying to slow down and read every single page of this chapter.
You're very, very passionate about life. You're very passionate about coaching. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, do you hope that God's will has college coaching in your future?
I love being a college coach. I love it, man. It's a huge sacrifice. It's very difficult for all those involved, but the reward is very, very special. And I do hope that the Lord has that in the future. But I am also not dumb enough and have learned just enough to know we'll see, man. We'll see. I always think baseball will be a part of this thing, but the second you say that, maybe the Lord's got you building a house and ministering through that. I don't know, man. But at the end of the day, there's something about, once again, it's the little minute details, right? Like, coach, you've been there, man. Like when that last out is made, that 27th out is made, and you shake the other in your dugout, you shake your other coach's hands because you know that's what you're there to do. Like you accomplished your thing. Like that handshake, that 5 seconds of shaking my assistant's hands. There's something special about that. There's something special about when you roll up to a place, whether it's Ole Miss or Lander, and you're getting off the bus and you're like, hey, there is no more preparing. This is it. All of our hard work is either going to pay off or we're going to be shown as we're not doing it right. But this is it. This is our hard work. Bam, here it is. Let's square off and see who's done a better job at it. There's something to that. There's something to the bus ride, right? Like the bus rides home after a series win or a sweep, and the boys are losing their mind in the back, or maybe we start up karaoke and I grab the microphone from the bus driver and sing Friends in Low Places to start the karaoke going for the bus ride home. There's something special about it. There's things that happen that will never show up on a box score, man. So as a coach, the wins and losses, justly so, man. Like they're what you're judged on. I get it. Just like a salesman would be, your sales for the year. But there's things that'll never show up on the box score that stick with you forever, man. And it's, the moments that other teammates don't even know. A kid comes into your office and, man, the things that I've got to pray over and the things we've got to do. And I mean, I've had kids coming in, going from wanting to swing at me to us crying together, praying over a situation in their family life. And I knew it wasn't me from the get-go. I knew, but you had to have enough discernment to know that there was other things going on, and literally seeing the Holy Spirit show up. And there's things that just happen. And the only way that they happen is that you are given the access to it, right? So the same way you have access and the Lord's given you keys that I don't have access to, it's because that's the platform He's given you, right? And your job is to be great in that platform. Now, you're not going to be perfect. And I know you're probably going to stay up late at night thinking, I screwed up. I missed on that one. Right. So it almost sounds hypocritical when I talk about these moments, because you're like, yeah, but what about all the ones you missed? You missed some, but as you reflect, which I think reflection is a really big thing, especially as a coach, reflect on it because it'll keep you going. You remember what that access of having that job, what it gave you to do, and you weren't perfect, but at moments, God shone through you because of that platform. Man, that stuff's awesome. And do I hope I get to do all that again? Of course I do. But we'll see what the good Lord has in store.
That's right. Well, the last 10, 12 years, it's been about coaching. Prior to that, you were a pretty good baseball player. I mentioned that in the open. I want to kind of camp out there for a little bit. I got a front row seat. We shared a dugout for a couple of summers before you went off, and we were in opposite dugouts. I mentioned in the very beginning that you had 29 saves. I feel like at the college level, half of those were against teams that I was coaching against you with. You tore us up on your way to those 29 saves, obviously. I started out as a starter, but finished 27th out plenty of times against a lot of them. You also won 14 games along the way. They used a lot of different ways to cap some wins for the Cougars. And fortunately, recently, the College of Charleston just elected you into the Hall of Fame. In my opinion, long overdue, being that you haven't played in a few years. I don't know what took so long for them to realize that you should be getting that Hall of Fame ring. Just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about your playing career. Obviously, a stellar career at Hillcrest alongside some other really good players at that high school at that time. I recruited you out of high school. You ended up going to the College of Charleston, and we ended up banging heads against each other after I got to share a dugout with you for 2 summers. I mean, you had a tremendous college career on parlay that into a professional career as a 5th-round pick with the Phillies, and then got to play 7 years of pro ball. Kind of take us back to your playing days, some of the things that you enjoy, some of your favorite memories, maybe dating back to, pre-high school, but certainly in high school, college, and in pro ball.
Yeah, man. Well, it's wild. And the College of Charleston getting inducted into the Hall of Fame is such an incredible honor. But it also it brings you back. It's like it's another lifetime ago. I've just finished my 14th, or last year was my 14th year of coaching. And when you coach, nobody cares about your playing days. Like it's funny. I get asked like in the stands, "Oh, you coached at Furman and Limestone, so did you play?" Yeah, I played. That's always one of the funniest questions I get asked. But to be there and to get for my kids to see dad as the player, as they talked about things I did in my playing career, it was special. And they only know dad the coach. And dad the coach has a lot of gray in his beard and doesn't have as much hair as I used to have, but that's all right. I wear a hat for a living. It's okay. And but they don't know much about dad the player. And so it was really cool to see that and to hear that stuff, and super special to have Coach Foxall come up from Auburn and introduce me onto that stage. But you date back to your time at Hillcrest, and baseball has always been a place. I didn't grow up with much, man. I lived in apartments my whole life, lived in a trailer in high school. And but baseball was the place where it was equal playing ground. Like, hey man, you live in the perfect neighborhood, and your parents got a great 401k. That's great. You still got to hit my slider. Like, doesn't matter. It's the equalizer, right? And I try and tell people that should be the place that where everybody's equal. It doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't matter your height and weight. It doesn't. If you have the skill, Altuve has been pretty freaking good, and he's undersized, right? And Randy Johnson's pretty good, and he's oversized, right? So everything in between works. It doesn't matter your income level. It doesn't matter your ethnicity. It doesn't matter, man. Go out there. It's an equal playing field. Go dominate. And it's where all the other stuff goes away. So, at the high school level, it was the place where I could just go compete, man. Go compete your tail off. We had great teams. I was not heavily recruited at all. Actually, 9/11 was my senior year when all that happened. My dad was in the Air Force Reserve. In the middle of 9/11, in the middle of my senior year, he gets shipped off to the Middle East. And all of a sudden, my life is thrown into a wild series of events where I didn't grow up in a military family. He was military before I was born, so he was just going back for retirement, and all of a sudden, going back for retirement, working 1 weekend a month turns into he's active military in the middle of war, which was pretty wild. So the College of Charleston, when they came in late, that was my dream school. I didn't have a lot of offers at that point. Lucky I grabbed Foxhall's attention, was able to go there, and then just this is a whole nother story. You can do a whole nother podcast about, but basically the day I was going off to college to Charleston, found out some wild stuff about my family. And my dad was basically just walked away from our family, was living a double life, walked away from our family. And I am now a 18-year-old at the College of Charleston. And before my experience even begins there, before my story even begins there, I'm being told we don't have a penny to our name. You're going to have to get pulled from college. And honestly, you got to go get a job. There's no way this whole thing's going to work. And classes hadn't even started. It was the day before classes. And Coach Foxhall hears about this. And this was what my whole speech was about in my Hall of Fame induction. He hears about this. And, I'm a lightly recruited, I wasn't some big 5-star dude they were bringing in. You thought I was pretty good. Nobody else thought I was very good. And there's an 18-year-old kid that he doesn't know a whole lot about, but he just knows I'm in trouble. And he interceded on my behalf, man. Interceded on my behalf. And he stepped up, got me more scholarship from the college, helped me apply for more state and money from the federal government, actually got me a job answering phones at the provost's office at the College of Charleston. I had zero idea what I was doing. I would answer this phone and try to transfer it out as quick as I could because I was an 18-year-old right-handed pitcher. I still don't even know what a provost is. I've been working at university for 14 years, but this dude stepped up for me, and he's the whole reason, everybody stepped in. My mom stepped in, everybody. It took a tribe around me. My then girlfriend, now wife, her family stepped in, and everybody came together to be there for me and, go off to the Cape, have a great Cape year, the first junior ever drafted out of College of Charleston. And now, I didn't become rich, but money is okay. Like I know how I'm going to pay my next insurance bill. And all that happened because I had a coach that, I hadn't put up numbers. Like it's easy to say, well, you got a Hall of Fame career. Of course they stepped up for you. Like I hadn't thrown a pitch. I hadn't spent a day on campus yet. This happened the day before school started. And I had a coach that said, no. Like this kid needs help. And I specifically remember being in a bullpen as down the line as Newberry's pitching coach, right? I started off at North Greenville and then became Newberry's pitching coach. And I was fresh out of pro ball. I was probably 28 years old. And I was just one of the dudes, right? One of the guys that just happened to be a coach, right? I felt like I could go out there and pitch if they needed me to pitch. And I was doing some math and randomly said, we're working on curveballs. So it made me think about Coach Fox. And I said, well, how old was Coach Fox while he was at the College of Charleston coaching me? Because when you're a player, you know this, man, like a coach is a coach. Like they're just older than you. You don't ever do the math on it. They're just older than you, right? And I started doing some math and I realized he's pretty close to the current age I was at sitting in that bullpen as a coach. And it hit me like a bag of bricks, man. It was like, I don't need to be their buddy. I need to be their coach. Like, what if somebody needs me to play that role that Foxhall played in my life? Like, I got to step this thing up. And it changed the way the next, 12 or so years, it just changed the relationship I have with my guys. And that's all inspired from a guy when I was 18 years old and the way he treated me. And, how many years later? 25 years later, I'm standing at a podium as he sits down. He drove up from Auburn to be at my Hall of Fame induction. And I'm just telling him with tears in my eyes that none of this is possible if he didn't believe in this 18-year-old and just step up on my behalf. I'd done nothing to earn it. He just stepped up on my behalf. If not, it's a completely different story, right? And you want to talk about the magic? That's where the magic is, man. Like that dude made an impact on my life. My son, my 8-year-old son's name is Hudson Fox Harker. I named my son after him, right? That's the kind of impact you can have as a coach. You're the dad that can say anything to a kid because the dad can only do so much. The kid stops listening after a little bit when you're a dad. And I guess somehow I just brought that right back into how passionate I am about this thing.
You mentioned Scott Foxhall. That's another common trait that you and I He made a huge impact in my life too. I appreciate you bringing that up and talking about Scott Foxhall, who's now at Auburn, won a national championship as a pitching coach at Mississippi State. But he coached both of us at the College of Charleston. He was the only reason that I ended up there. He gave me a shot once upon a time. When I played for him, he was only 3 years older than me. And to this day, I've never called him by his first name. He's Coach Foxhall, or Fox to me as well. But just because that that certain reverence that you have for former coaches of yours. And so I could probably rattle off quite a few things that he did, that impacted my life as well. And so, when you talk about that, and we're talking about one person who made a huge difference in your life and in my life, that is an important thing for people to realize. And coaches who may be listening to this, is the impact one way or the other that you can have on young, impressionable lives. Fortunately, you and I had a tremendous model in him, and others as well, that were able to shape our lives. And so, love the shout out to Coach Fox. Man, I'm sure he'll probably listen to this at some point. A couple of his proteges are sitting here hanging out back in South Carolina while he's out in Alabama. Guys like him, and guys like him.
Yeah, I want to bring up one more thing, because there was one other coach. So I was playing travel ball. I think it was my senior year, and we were playing at the College of Charleston, and I was playing for the Diamond Devils, and we played terrible, man. We had it. We were a disgrace on the field that day. And I had this coach come up to our team and say, "Hey, man, like, you guys need a reality check on where you stand, and you need to know what I think about you and what you need to get better. So here's the deal. I'm going to sit in that first base dugout, and you come one by one. If you have the guts to do it, come one by one, and I'm going to tell you where I think you stand and what you need to get better about." And that's not an easy conversation to have with people, because it's very easy. The opposite of love is apathy. If you're apathetic about something, it means you have no care about when it goes wrong, or if it goes right. It's apathetic about it. And so I was the first one. I went in this dugout, man. I wanted to hear what this guy had to say about me, because at the end of the day, good, bad, or indifferent, here it is, man. This is me. And this dude sat me one-on-one in that dugout and said, I know you're going to the College of Charleston, which is where I went to school, and it means so much to me. And he said, everything I know about you tells me that one day they're going to hang your jersey on a wall. And you don't remember that, Coach Alexander, but I do. And it stuck with me. And it's guys like you that believed in me along the way, man. 31's hanging on that wall out there. So you guessed something right? But that's because there's a deep, the Lord put people in my life that truly believed in me and spoke life into me. And at that moment where people were scared of hearing truth, what you're really doing is speaking life. And sometimes life is good. Sometimes life is hard. Like, speaking life into somebody is also, hey, like, you got to get better at this, right? But that day, as a 17-year-old kid in that dugout, which is funny because that's the same dugout that was our home dugout, and I knew that dugout meant a lot to you as well. That dugout is where I watched lots of wins for our college, right? And I always remember that. And you gotta understand something about me. Having a closer mentality, I have a short memory. I let a lot of things go quick, right? And I think that can be very advantageous as a baseball coach and player. But there's certain things that stick with me, and I would replay that conversation that you and I had when you coached me as a 17-year-old, and you spoke life into me that day, and I'll forever be grateful for that, man.
Well, I'll forever be grateful that our paths crossed all those years ago, and continue to, and the friendship that we've been able to have, first as a player and a coach, and then, of course, just friends later on. You're just a special human. You're a gem of a coach, but I want to make sure that during this podcast, too, people realize just how good that breaking ball was and how good you were finishing ball games. But really, the person you are speaks to your background, and what you've made of your life, and the impact that you have on others is really the most important thing. Jackie Robinson said it. A human life is really only about the impact that you have on others. And if I had some impact on you, boy, that's humbling. But I've seen you, and what you've accomplished has been pretty tremendous to see. And it always, I just light up whenever your name comes up. People ask me about you, whether they know that we're connected or not, because you just turned out to be a wonderful husband and father, and of course, man of God. So I'm really proud of you. So when you were inducted, or I guess it was announced that you're inducted, I reached out to you and you reminded me of that story all those years ago. And I'm just happy things have played out for you. I can't wait to see what's next for you. You mentioned this is one thing I meant to talk about earlier. Mark, it was, you started out at College Charleston as a starter. You were a starter in high school and a good one, but you ended up making your mark, finishing ball games. If you could, that happens a lot of times when good high school pitchers end up having to transition to college, and at least initially their roles end up being out of the bullpen. I guess mentally, what you had to do from a preparation standpoint. And I knew you could throw every day, so recovery time wasn't going to be an issue for you. But mentally, I guess things that you had to battle or maybe to work through to make that transition from starting pitcher to relief pitcher.
I mean, it's a great question. I'll get asked it a whole lot because a lot of people don't realize I started off as a starter, but like most high school kids, all right, like mostly starters. And I won the starting role, weekend role as a freshman. I was our Sunday starter at the College of Charleston. What's funny now is I had no idea what that meant. Yeah, cool. They're giving me the ball on Sunday. Now, after being a coach for so long, I'm like, man, that was a big deal. Like, I had no idea. You don't know what you don't know, right? And I was just young and naive enough to be like, all right, sweet, give me the ball. And I was our Sunday starter for, I'd probably say 3/4 of the year, maybe a little longer, my freshman year. And I was okay. Probably what you would expect a freshman to be. Really good one weekend, next weekend, just okay. And no idea what I was doing, literally just gripping it and ripping it, start to break a ball at their head and pull it down as hard as I can. That was always my motto, and see if I can't get them to buckle. But facing a lineup for the third time was difficult for me because I was just a max effort guy. I wanted to just let it eat. And I remember John Pulaski, our head coach, coming up to me one day and said, "You're unhittable for the first 3 innings. It's the fourth, fifth that gets you. I think we're going to try you in a closer role." And I said, "Never done it. Let's do it." And you know what? It had to be. I think the first time I went in for a close opportunity was in the Southern Conference Championship, or in the Southern Conference Championship. Yeah. So I guess I was a starter the whole freshman year. Gosh, it feels like lifetimes ago. It's hard to remember. But I ended up getting a save in the SoCon Championship. And I remember him saying, "I think your future is in the back end of the bullpen." And so I went off to the Peninsula Pilots of the Coastal Plains League. And I said, I know I came to you guys as a starter, but I need to learn how to close. And so I closed that summer. I had Ryan Zimmerman as my third baseman on that team. That helped, having that guy glove down the line drives I was giving up down the lines. But I ended up being an all-star there, and did very well, man. Honestly, statistically, I think to this day it's still the best year I've ever had. And so I came back to the College of Charleston, and it just kind of rolled from there. Ended up being first team all conference, was top 5 in the nation in saves that year. I think I had like 13. Then I went off to the Cape Cod League. That is a wild experience, man. Everywhere you play, it's nothing but Power 5 guys, and you're playing on tiny high school fields. And, if you have 2,000 people at a high school field, you feel like you're playing at Wrigley Stadium. It feels so packed. But, another God moment, man. We end up winning the Cape Cod League the year I'm there. I get to throw the last inning. I get to throw the final pitches to win the Cape Cod League. There's an author there following our whole story that summer. No idea we're going to win the state, or no idea we're going to win the Cape Cod Championship. We end up winning it. He publishes this book. It's called Beach Chairs and Baseball Bats. You can literally go to Barnes & Noble and get this book. And it's got like a whole chapter about me pitching the last inning of the championship game. Like, what a wild series of events. But ended up going back to College of Charleston for that junior year, and it was a lights out year, man. I was 15 saves, set the all-time saves record. I think I was second or third in the nation, maybe second in saves, All-American, like I said, and then got Southern Conference Pitcher of the Year, which as a relief pitcher is nearly impossible. I don't think it's happened since. I think it's what Coach Foxhall told me. But had that not happened, had that transition not happened, do I think I would have been a good player? I think I would have been a decent player. I don't think I would have been a 5th-round draft pick. I don't think I would have. You had to be willing to make that transition and just say, hey, just because this is what I've always done doesn't mean I can't be better at something. You just got to be willing to do it. And man, if somebody's willing to give you the ball, if someone's willing to pencil your name into a starting lineup, man, I've been a shortstop my whole life. What do you mean left field? Go play left field. Go play left field. Do whatever it takes to get in the lineup. Do whatever it takes to be given the ball on the mound. And the rest is kind of history.
When I was reading your accolades earlier, I forgot to mention you were an all-state DH your high school season. I remember that whole summer that I had you. You made sure when your name wasn't in the lineup, you always had to remind me that you were an all-state DH. And I said, well, we're just trying to get you ready for your next outing. At that time, I had you starting.
I'm
Of course,
glad you said it.
you
I'm
know,
glad
you
you said it, not
your
me.
career. Well, you made sure we knew it and kind of ingrained it in our brains. I couldn't forget it 25 years later. But well, man, I could do this all day long with you. There are a few things I want folks to know a little bit more about you, and then we'll kind of work towards our close. Baseball. That's how we know each other. It's how you know a lot of folks in your life. But what are some other things that you enjoy outside of baseball? What are some of your hobbies?
Basically anything outside, man. We go camping. We do family camping. I go camping with just my boy, trying to make those core memories. Hiking. I love going hiking. I think there's no better activity you can do to clear your mind. Go take your dog, go get in your truck, drive to the middle of the mountains, hike to the top of it. The whole time think, why am I doing this? This is really hard. Have a little quiet time at the top, hike back down. I think it's the most therapeutic thing you can do. Me and my kids, we actually bought this tiny little pontoon boat. Now, what you're thinking of a pontoon boat is the opposite of what I have. You can pick this thing up and put it in the back of your truck. You would think we bought a Tri-Tune for $100,000. How much fun we have on this little $600 boat that goes in the back of my truck. But me and my kids go out, we go swimming off of it, we go fishing off of it. Basically, anything that's outdoors and off of a screen is what I absolutely love to do. If I'm in the woods and there's a campfire anywhere near it, I'm happy, man.
What are some of your other favorites? I want to kind of throw some things at you real quick and just kind of get a feel for other things that you enjoy. When I say favorites, I say food. What do you like to eat? Where are some of your favorite places to eat?
Oh man, I like any kind of red meat. I got a one of those flat top grills for Christmas and a good smash burger on that flat top grill. It's tough to beat that. But I'm a hunter too, so I like eating venison burgers or any kind of honestly, if it's red meat, I'll eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. My favorite places to eat, honestly, Greenville had so many of them. Our most award-winning restaurant is called Scoundrel. It actually became the first place in Greenville history to get a Michelin star. We actually have a connection to it. So that's my wife's childhood best friend. That's the little brother. And he opened up this restaurant and is literally the most awarded restaurant in Greenville. It's a fantastic place to eat. Anytime my wife walks in, she gets treated like royalty. So that's always a nice little perk. But Scoundrel is a pretty special place to eat in Greenville.
Great plug for Scoundrel right there. What kind of music do you like?
Oh boy. I like literally everything. If you were to look at my music list on there, it depends on whether you're working out. Zach Bryan is one of my favorites because you could play it with the kids in the car, and that still works. Now if I'm at the gym, I got a little bit of 2000 early 2000s Hillcrest in me, so we got a little rap going on. I don't know how you're gonna feel about that, but a little Dr. Dre and Tupac never hurt anybody when you're working out.
What kind of sports do you like to watch, or what do you watch on television other than baseball? What do you when you plug in the TV and you can plug into it and you watch whatever's on there? What you like?
Yeah, so I grew up being all college football. My uncle was the athletic trainer for Florida State in the 90s for baseball and football. So I grew up a big Florida State fan, which was very confusing as a child in the footprint of Clemson. Everybody is CLEM, and I'm over here doing the tomahawk chop. Very confused as a child. So I grew up with nothing but college football. And basically, in the last 5 or 6 years, I have fallen in love with the NFL. We became enormous Buffalo Bills fans. So the fake side of this is my family's from New York. I played in Batavia, New York, which is right outside of Buffalo. These are my connections to the Buffalo Bills. That's why I'm a devout Bills fan. All of that is fake. I never watched the NFL. I never cared about it. All my friends did, and I was tired of not caring about Sunday. So we started watching a bunch of different teams and said we're going to pick one to fall in love with. Fell in love with Josh Allen's story, being a baseball player that beat the odds at a JUCO. Nobody wanted him. Literally begged places to go. Ended up going to Wyoming. Has made a name for himself. It just reminded me a lot of my story. And I said, man, that's a guy you can pull for. That's a kid you want your son to watch. And since then, the last 6 years, our entire schedule revolves around when and where the Bills are playing. And it's been so fun because I can just be a fan of that. If I'm watching a baseball game, it's driving me insane why they didn't bunt and get the run in first and third, one out, and they hit into a double play. Well, if you would have just bunted and gotten the run in, dummy, that wouldn't have happened. I don't do that with football. I can just be a fan. So go Bills.
You'll probably be jumping off trucks and onto tables, and you'll be leading them off you before we know it. knowing you, right? Well, hey, you've had a lot of people come across your path, and obviously you've spoken a lot about a lot of those folks in this podcast. One last thing here, I just want to see if you want to give some shout outs to some folks, some people that really impacted you. Like I said, you mentioned some other people, but give you the floor. Shout outs. What you got?
Yeah, so I mean, my late grandpa was the one who taught me to fall in love with baseball. So my grandpa's from Puerto Rico. My mom's side of the family is Puerto Rican. So English was his second language, and I use that very loosely. He spoke very little English, and he was my babysitter growing up. And, he would speak Spanish, I would speak English. He'd understand me enough, I'd understand him enough. But the common thing was to go in the backyard and play catch, go play ball. And that's where I fell in love with it. What's really cool is he was a photographer when he was in Puerto Rico, and he would actually shoot some of the sports teams. And you fast forward all those years later when I was playing with the Phillies and the Marlins, I actually got to go play in Puerto Rico as a native. I didn't count as one of their imports because being half Puerto Rican. And I got to play for those teams that my grandpa long ago had shot as a photographer, which is just an incredible thing. But obviously, he just made such a big impact in my life. And then just my family always being there for me. My mom, my brothers, my wife. I married my high school sweetheart. Like, who does that? My first girlfriend lasted 4 months. My second girlfriend's going on 25 years. We got married as puppies. Everyone thought we were crazy, and we're about to celebrate our 20th year. I know nothing else. That she is. We joke all the time. When you get together as 16-year-olds, you are each other's baggage. We didn't bring baggage into this thing. We are each other's baggage. We built such a beautiful life together. And she's the good behind all this, man. She's the wisdom behind it. She's the one that always says, hold up, before we make that decision, let's pray about it. Let's sleep on it. Let's make sure this is what God wants in our life. And without somebody like that as a rock, these last 5 years could have been very, very tough. But when you got that at home next to you, like, how can you walk around and feel anything than blessed when you have that for a wife, when you have healthy kids, right? At the end of the day, man, it's your family. At the end of the day, it's family. And I've been so blessed to have an incredible family, incredible friends, and God is good, man.
You're exactly right. Man, I really appreciate your time. I'm glad that we're able to do this and could have done this for much longer. I think we've been talking for close to an hour. So hopefully some folks are still hanging on there with us as we wind this down. But Coach, I appreciate it. I can call you Coach Harker. I guess I can call you Hark as well. Man, it's been fun to follow your ride. First saw you as a high school pitcher, and then boy, what a journey it's been. It's been a lot of fun to watch all the different things that you've accomplished. But man, you're still extremely young. I can't wait to see what God's plan has for you. I'm sure it'll be impactful, and I look forward to keeping up with you and remaining a good friend of yours as whatever that next actually turns out to be happens for you. So. I just want to let you know that I appreciate you coming on. One last thing, I guess if you got anything else that you want to, any parting shot before we go.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you one more compliment, all right, and just take it because men's initial reaction is no, 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 no. So just sit back and take this, all right. I got two people in my life where I joke where I don't know what their answer machine sounds like, right? So I've always said, people say, why has Foxhall been such a big deal to you? Because I don't know what his answer machine sounds like. That means he always picks up. So he was playing for a national championship and I was looking for a job. This was when everything happened at Furman. And he would call me before the game and say, what updates do we have? Like, what can I help you with? Right. Through all of this, I've always leaned on Foxhall, and you have always been on that list of people that I lean on. And if somebody asks me what your answer machine sounds like, I don't think I know. And I say that that's something I need to get better at. I feel like too many of my guys know what my answer machine is now. I do my best to get back to them, but you have always been the person that what's right in front of you, you're going to treat that as if it's the most important thing. And I know several people feel like that they're one of your favorites that you ever coached. I truly feel like I'm one of your favorites you've ever coached. And that's because that's the way you treat people. And I just want to thank you, man. All that you've done all these years, the platform that you've built, that isn't because you have this product that's unbelievable and it's you, man. It's you. It's the person behind it. People buy stories, people buy experiences, and you're a real person that likes to help people. And I just want to thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. It means a lot. It means a lot. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. To those that are still listening to us, just want to make sure you know that all of our scouting, all of our preseason rankings are being posted if they haven't been already. Stay tuned throughout the rest of this week. Those will be coming. And then after we finish with all the team rankings, we'll be diving right into the player rankings. And then, of course, it's time for baseball. We'll have our February scrimmages. We'll be out watching as much scrimmage baseball as we can before the preseason tournaments. And then, of course, a conference play cranks up, and then we'll be sitting at somebody's backstop as much as we possibly can, trying to find the next Brett Harker, whether it be as an all-star DH or a right-handed pitcher that can spin it a little bit. We're going to be out. We're going to be prowling around trying to find everything we can. For those of you who are still with us, I just want to thank you again for tuning in for our 75th podcast. This is our last episode here before the college baseball season starts. So hopefully, we'll be able to see as much college baseball as that cranks up at the Division I, II, and at the junior college level as well. So we just appreciate everybody listening. This is, of course, the Bullpen Show, powered by Architech Sports. I'm your host, Austin Alexander, again, signing off. Again, thank you, Brett Harker, and we'll see you again at the baseball field next time.
Thank you, guys.